What up, brawlers? Welcome back to Throwin Hands. This is one day late, but we are reviewing Fight Night, Munhoz versus Edgar. Daniel, how you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Ready to get down to it.
All right, let's do it. This catchweight belt, first one of the night. I think this was the biggest odds differential in the whole card. Throwin Jones, man, he really put on a performance. Did you see this fight, Daniel?
I caught part of it after the fact, actually, and I was honestly impressed with it. Throwin Jones, like you said, a pretty wide spread on the old betting lines, but he's able to come out, get the win. Really impressive in figuring his way out to still looking really dominant in a fight that I don't think people expected him to win in any way. If you look at the betting odds.
Yeah, honestly, and if you watch the first round, he was in trouble. He was backed up against the fence, and he got out of it and won in the second round. So, big props to Throwin Jones. I wish he got a bonus. All right, to the main card. Daniel Rodriguez, he got that big dub against Dwight Grant. I was very impressed. What were your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Rodriguez, he did what he does. He went out, threw strikes with power. Actually got outstruck 2-1 by Dwight Grant. But all 15 of his strikes were significant. He puts him out in the first round. It was Daniel Rodriguez doing Daniel Rodriguez things. 3 knockdowns in the first round. A really, really strong performance from an up-and-comer.
Yeah, I really couldn't have asked much more from him. And he in 2020, he's on a 3-0 tear. So he's one of 3 to do that, I believe, with Yusuf Zalan, one other person that I cannot think of. All right, so onto this welterweight division. I think he's proven himself to get a ranked opponent here. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him go up against Showtime Pettis. What do you think?
That would make a lot of sense. I think that would be a mix of styles that would work well for Daniel Rodriguez to have an opportunity to pick up a win there. But he's certainly in a position where he's earned a top 15 guy. He's earned the opportunity to prove himself at welterweight.
All right, so Dwight Grant's still a very hopeful prospect. So this was surprising here. Maria Agapova versus Shanna Dobson. Maria Agapova had the second biggest odds spread of the night. And then Shanna Dobson she got that TKO with that ground and pound after she gained top control. What were your thoughts on this?
Shanna Dobson came into this, like you said, she was an 8-1 underdog. And she comes in against Agapova, who's a huge riser in this division. And she just stopped her cold. Agapova obviously had her opportunities on the feet, even moving the fight to the ground. But once she lost top control, Shanna Dobson was just physically dominant. That's the thing that stood out to me. Physically, in terms of physique, in terms of strength, Shanna Dobson dominated this fight once it went to the ground. Once she was able to get on top of Agapova, that ground and pound was vicious. We were watching this fight, and honestly, I think she probably caught Agapova in the back of the head a couple times. You're gonna have that happen just with the positioning they were in. But Dobson was able to correct that. She was able to land clean shots and not let Agapova sneak out the back door or anything. And that physical dominance is what stood out to me.
Yeah, the physical dominance. She just seemed very, very strong in this fight. And she has a bright future. But we're going to talk about Agapova first. She is still a very bright prospect. I definitely believe that to be true. She's only 22, 23, I believe. And she's got it, I think. She just had a mess up here. So I think we could see her fight somebody the same rank around Shanna Dobson. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think Agapova probably doesn't get a top 15 contender like we probably would have seen her do had she picked up a win over Shanna Dobson. But like you said, 23 years old. She trains with American Top Team. She's fighting with some of the best in the world. And she's still just 23 years old. She's in a position kind of similar, not the same kind of hype just because of personality, I would say, to somebody like Sean O'Malley, but sort of an up-and-comer that in the same way got stopped in a way that probably they'll learn from a lot more than they're going to be damaged by the loss. I think Maria Agapova learns from this. I think she gets another unranked fighter in her next time out, and I think she makes a big jump moving forward.
Yep, I have to agree with you there. And Shanna Dobson, I don't really know what's next for her. I think it's really up to what the UFC just wants to do with her. I think she'll fight an unranked opponent next, but a nice up-and-coming prospect. What do you think?
I think Shanna Dobson gets another prospect. That's probably the best bet for her. She's 31. She's only fought professionally 8 times. She was a huge underdog in this fight. So I would expect her to get another unranked prospect. She was coming off 3 straight losses. So maybe she's figured something out and she gets a win in her next fight, and all of a sudden she's in a position similar to what we saw with Jessica I, where she struggles early in her career and then turns into a legitimate contender. You never know. But as it stands right now, Shanna Dobson, despite knocking off Agapova here, hasn't proven a ton in the UFC. I would expect her to look for another opportunity against an unranked opponent and prove that she's moved on from those 3 losses.
For sure. All right. To a very impressive submission from Joe Selecki. He caught that rear naked choke on Austin Hubbard when he took his back when they were standing up. And Joe Selecki mixed in some good ground and pound with trying to find the submission. He was very, very patient, which I liked a lot. What were your thoughts?
Yeah, Selecki's patience was outstanding. I mean, he mounted Hubbard from a standing position up against the fence and was just able to stay there until Hubbard's guard got worn down. He was able to lock in the rear naked choke. This was a fight that, with the way it was going, with how quickly Selecki took the back, you expected it to be over quickly, and it was still a first-round finish, but it took 3 minutes and 50 seconds. So Selecki, I was really impressed with how much time he took to set Hubbard up for that rear naked choke. He didn't panic when he didn't lock it in right away once he took the back. It was a really strong performance. I was really impressed with just how technical he was in setting up that finish.
Yeah, definitely. So for Austin Hubbard, it's kind of hard to tell what's up for him. I think he'll fight someone along the ranks of Joe Selecki again, but he has lost his last 2 bouts. He could get cut, but he is still pretty young. What do you think?
Hubbard is a guy that has potential at 28 years old. He's 5'10", fighting in light heavyweight, so he's got some length to him. He's obviously he loses here to Joe Selecki. He got that win against Max Roshkov, which obviously, whatever you want to say about that fight, it was still a win. But he's kind of been really inconsistent in the UFC. He lost his debut, then he beats Kyle Prepolek, loses to Mark Madsen, beats Max Roshkov, and now he loses to Joe Selecki. So he's just been inconsistent. He was really successful in LFA. He was consistent in the regional circuit. I could see him sticking around on the roster, but if he takes back-to-back losses with his track record of inconsistency, him dropping down to 12-6 on his record could get him cut from the roster.
Oh, for sure. But I think on to Selecki. I like this guy a lot. Contender Series vet. And he got it done. He's got it done last 2 fights, and he got his submission, even though his fighting style is more of a boxing-esque style. So he showed his diversity here, and I think we could see him make a little jump here in competition. What do you think?
I think Selecki probably gets a step up here again, like you said, his second win in the UFC, and it's been an interesting thing because, like you said, he's more of a boxer, but he's got a ton of submission finishes on his record. His first 3 professional wins were rear naked chokes. He's got now 5 rear naked choke finishes to go with a guillotine and a triangle, 1 each of those. So he can handle the stand-up game, but he really finishes people well with jiu-jitsu, which is really interesting. So if he can go on the feet and he has that ability, particularly to find a way to take the back, or even with that guillotine to finish people off his back, he could be a really dangerous fighter with the power he's got in his hands and some technical boxing combined with that ability, that knack to finish people with chokes.
All right, we got that run down. So Marcin Prachnio versus Mike Rodriguez. Woo! I mean, Prachnio got into the pocket early, but Mike Rodriguez, when they got in that clinch, nice overhand right elbow to the chin, then just knocked him out on the canvas. What were your thoughts?
When you have a guy that is as long and has as much power as Mike Rodriguez, people are going to get knocked out. And that's what happened here with Marcin Prachnio. Prachnio had an outstanding game plan coming into this. He closed the distance on Rodriguez. He got in tight, but he got stuck with that elbow. Rodriguez was able to get back out to distance and just throw haymakers, and it put him down. There's honestly no shame in losing the way that Marcin Prachnio did, but Mike Rodriguez is just such an impressive athlete with his length, both arm and leg reach, the power he's got in his hands. He's a guy that has a lot of potential moving forward. He was really impressive here to me. He wasn't very efficient with his striking, but when he landed, and it did a ton of damage.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I don't know, what's next for Prachnio, it's kind of tough because he's gone. He's lost
He's lost three in a row.
3 in a row. He's 32, so he's not young. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him get the boot. What do
I
you
think he gets cut because he's lost every fight he's had in the UFC. He's 0-3 in the UFC.
Yeah, it's
He had a
simple.
ton of success. He had a ton of success in one championship, but the UFC is a completely different animal, and he's lost every fight.
Yeah, and I think Prochnio shows that hey, this dude is this place is built different in the UFC.
Yeah.
So, and for Rodriguez, I think we see him get a ranked contender. To be honest, I mean, I don't know, Paul Craig maybe. I know he wants to fight Hua next, but I don't know. What are your thoughts?
It's interesting because a guy like Mike Rodriguez, he's been around for 3 years. He fought in the Contender Series 3 years ago, I should say. Made his UFC debut in 2018 with a loss. He's not a guy that is a streaking prospect where he's won 2 or 3 fights in a row. But he was so impressive against Prochnio that, honestly, I could see him getting a top 15 guy. I think the UFC may throw one more test at him to get a little bit more momentum before they give him a contender. But I could easily see them matching him up with a top 15 guy to really test his mettle, especially since he's already 31.
Oh, for sure, for sure. All right, but before we go to the main event, I want to talk about this guy a little bit. The Beverly Hills Ninja, Jordan Wright. Very impressive performance. He's usually a middleweight. He weighed in at 200 pounds at the 205 division, and he knocked Isaac Villanueva out. He was going to be on the Contender Series in a couple weeks, but hey, he proved he can do stuff right now. I don't know if you saw this fight, but what are your thoughts?
Yeah, Jordan Wright did it. I mean, he came in, like you said, was expected to be a Contender Series guy. Is typically fighting at a lower weight class, comes in against Villanueva, who's a big dude. If you saw this fight or you've seen pictures of Isaac Villanueva, he's a big man. And Jordan Wright came in, put the dude down for the count. 15 significant strikes to 7. Jordan Wright on the scorecards and just in terms of impression looked awesome in this fight.
Yep. I mean, we'll see him get another prospect probably down at 185, but hey, props to Jordan Wright. All right, to the main event of the evening, Pedro Munhoz versus Frankie Edgar. You and I have no idea how Frankie Edgar won on the scorecards.
Pedro Munhoz won this fight.
Yes, he won this fight. And if you look here, if you're watching on YouTube, all but 4 people, like media members, scored it for Frankie Edgar. And include our friend Phil Murphy scored it for Pedro Munhoz too. So shout out to Phil Murphy. Yeah, it was a really interesting fight. Pedro Munhoz landed more significant strikes. He had more octagon control. He controlled the octagon for 95% of the fight. And I think Edgar probably won the second round, and I think that was it in my book. What were your thoughts?
I really don't understand this decision. I really don't, because Pedro Munhoz, like you said, octagon control is one of the last things you look at, but he dominated octagon control. He landed more strikes, 166 to 135. These were 2 guys that were throwing a lot of shots. Did Frankie Edgar maybe land some bigger shots than Pedro Munhoz? It's entirely possible, but Munhoz was giving it right back to him. Edgar had 2 takedowns, but in a 5-round main event, it's not going to have that much of an impact if you land 2 takedowns to Munhoz with 0. I just don't understand the decision. I get that Frankie Edgar's a legend. I get the judges are supposed to be impartial, and I don't want to question what they bring to the table. But you got to wonder if that kind of snuck in the back of their minds. Frankie Edgar, obviously, if you've been watching him for a long time, he's been so impressive. I don't know if that's something that sneaks around in the back of your head, and you think that you're – I just don't understand it. I don't understand the decision. Pedro Munhoz, by literally every metric, won this fight. I don't get how you give Frankie Edgar a split decision here. And I don't understand how somebody scored at 49-46. Who gave Frankie Edgar 4 rounds in that fight?
Yeah, I don't know either. It's a conundrum, but we'll deal with it. Yeah, someone from MMA Mania.
Actually, it wasn't 49-46. Somebody gave – Sal D'Amato is the only sane person because he gave it was 49-46 in favor of Munhoz. I misspoke there.
Yeah.
But 49-46 in favor of Munhoz is what I would have scored it. I could see it going 48-47 Munhoz. but anything that goes in Frankie Edgar's direction, I just don't understand.
Yeah, and someone from MMA Mania scored it 49-46 to Edgar. So I don't know what they were watching. They must have been watching some old film. Anyway, so we head over to the rankings. Pedro Munhoz dropped down to 6. Everybody dropped down 1. I think we could see an Aldo fight next. Maybe Sandhagen. I would like to see one of these two guys go at it. What are your thoughts?
I think Corey Sandhagen would be a really good fight for Pedro Munhoz. Two guys that have been knocked off by legitimate contenders that are trying to get their feet back under them. And they're two guys that are still relatively young that have a lot of potential in this division. I think if you're looking to get one of them quickly back into title contention, that could be where you go. But honestly, as young as Corey Sandhagen is and as much of a top prospect as he is, I'm not sure you would want to put him in a position where he could lose back-to-back.
Yeah, you make a good point there. And I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Corey Sandhagen, comes up one day and takes the title. He's that good of a kickboxer. So we'll see what happens there. Frankie Edgar, I'm still salty, so I'm gonna be mean about it. He's not gonna fight any of these guys in the top 4 right now, I don't think, because we got Corey Sandhagen, like you said, we don't want him losing back to back. Cody Garbrandt, who's going down to the flyweight division to grab the championship. Aljamain Sterling, who's next up. And, Marlon Moraes has been just thrown in the dumpster in this division.
That's a shame, man.
It's a shame. He's so good. And, I don't know, we could see Jimmy Rivera maybe, Rafael Sunsao for Frankie Edgar. That's what I see. What do you think?
Yeah, Edgar's going to have to wait on a fight if he's not willing to move to another weight class, which it seemed like the way he was talking before this fight, he thinks he's in bantamweight to stay. But I think Marlon Moraes is in a position where the next title fight's going to come between him and Aljamain Sterling, and if he doesn't get the next one, he's in a position to wait for the winner of Petr Yan and Aljamain Sterling. Like you said, Cody Garbrandt's moving down to 125 to at least fight Davison Figueiredo. So Frankie Edgar, he's going to have to wait on a fight. I don't know who that would be. You could match him up with Jose Aldo as two guys that have recently moved into this division, but he's going to have to wait for an opponent, in my opinion. He's going to have to wait for some of these other guys to fight at least one more time for some of this contender situation to be figured out.
Yeah, definitely. And I don't know, I guess we can skim over Moraes for a sec. I feel bad for this dude. He's probably not going to fight this year.
Yeah. He's been passed over twice for the bantamweight title.
Yeah, I think he deserves it. I think you and I can definitely both agree that he deserves that title fight.
It should have been Petr Yan versus Marlon Moraes.
Yeah,
for the vacant title.
Definitely not Aldo.
Not Aldo. I get that Jose Aldo's an all-time legend. I get that he's a huge name in the sport, but he had no business in that fight.
Oh, definitely. So on the news, if you have any, what have you heard?
I mean, there's obviously fights being made, things spinning around. Not a lot going on. Fabricio Verdum is talking about a possible rematch with Fedor Emelianenko. Obviously, those are guys that are in two different organizations right now, but it'd certainly be two of the best heavyweights of all time going at it. Fedor's a guy that didn't fight all that much in the UFC. I don't know where that fight would take place, but it's two older guys. Fedor is well past his prime. And
they both are, honestly.
Yeah, we can agree that Verdum's on the backslide as well. But I think that's certainly a rematch that we could see potentially. I think it would probably be outside the confines of the UFC, but you never know.
Yeah, maybe some Golden Boy Promotions type stuff coming up with that matchup. Yeah, I haven't seen anything too interesting in particular. So, but do you have anything else?
That covers it. Robbie Lawler coming back. We're going to preview that card later this week. But yeah, Robbie Lawler coming back.
Yeah, Robbie's coming back, guys. All right, Daniel, thanks for coming back on. Always a pleasure. And we will see you guys next time.